I think that they will try really hard. And I think that they have literally as good of a shot as any non-Dodgers team. I think that the Cubs have tried very hard to make themselves a desirable landing spot for Japanese stars because, like we've seen with Shota and Seiya, those guys are good.
Cubs fans, I just want to jump on here really quick and let you know this is a excerpt from a full 45-minute interview that I did with Michael Cerami. I'm going to have the entire episode on our channel tomorrow, so make sure you check that out. But this one is just about Roki Sasaki. We're just talking about Roki Sasaki and what is the likelihood that Jed really makes that his big fish for the offseason. We talk about a lot of factors, especially the relationships that Sasaki has within the major leagues. And I just want to encourage you tomorrow, put it on your calendar. Make sure you go check out the full episode that I have, the full talk that I have with Michael, because we talk about Jed's plan and especially kind of taking the last 3 years and seeing how has he done things and how that might equate to this upcoming offseason and how there might be maybe some more under the hood than we actually think at this moment. And of course, we're going to talk about starting pitching because that has been what seems like the biggest kind of get that the Cubs are looking to get this offseason. And we even talk a little bit about projections and the catching situation as well. So put that on your calendar. Tomorrow, we're going to release that one. This one, though, just with Roki Sasaki, talking to Michael Cerami right here from Bleacher Nation. Yeah, and I mean, we haven't even talked about him yet, but I just have to believe that Jed is going to put so much effort into the Sasaki situation. I mean, it's cost effective, it's control, it's all the things that you would want. And let's just say that, you know, he had some injuries this last year and he had some regression, but even that pitcher is better stuff-wise than anyone on the Cubs right now, even with the regression. Why would you not go after this guy hard? And you know, I mean, I know everyone keeps saying the Dodgers, but I really think that Jed is going to be like, no, this is our golden goose this offseason, and I'm going to put as much as I can into it while also trying to get some mid-level guys.
Yeah, I mean, I actually fully agree. I think Roki Sasaki is, if Jed Hoyer could close his eyes and make one player a Cub this offseason, I think it would be him. Not only because of him being so good and so young and so hard throwing, but also because he would be extremely cheap, which I'm not saying that to say that Jed Hoyer is cheap, is that it allows you to do other things, whereas adding the same level of talent from some other starting pitcher doesn't. It prevents you from doing it because the dollars are zero sum, whether they should be or not. And so, yeah, I think that that's the case. I think that they will try really hard. And I think that they have literally as good of a shot as any non-Dodgers team. On the flip side, I also, you know, I know Roki can't get as much money from anyone as he can if he had waited a few years. But the Cubs also have extremely less money available. And the Dodgers have literally saved up seemingly for this exact pursuit. So it's kind of like, it's hard to sit down at two tables and look at Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto on a World Series trophy and the geographic advantages of LA and more money in terms of millions, or the Cubs and Shota and Suzuki, who are both awesome and less money and geographically less conducive to a Japanese player. Those are not really even offers, no matter how bad or how badly the Cubs want it. But all that aside, they did get those two guys. Shota and Suzuki were big deal free agents, and they got them. So
exactly. Well, and am I right that if he waits until January for the 2025 pool, then there's a lot more money out there, including from the Cubs. So are you saying from the money standpoint, the 2024 pool, or are you saying even in the 2025?
So it's sort of both. So if he, and I think he's going to be posted in a manner such that he can sign in either by his discretion. The Dodgers have more money in both already. Okay. The Cubs will have more in the latter period. So, which is after January 15th, I believe is when it is. And I think that if there's any chance the Cubs get him, it'll have to be in that second period. So, you know, the longer it takes for him to be posted, the better, I guess, just because it kind of narrows the time before that first period ends. But he'll be posted before. I mean, I'm guessing the end of this month is when actually be posted. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that the money will never equal that for the Cubs. Oh, this is the point I was going to make. I was stalling because I couldn't remember. I think the Cubs also have, and this is always a little unclear. I'm doing a little bit of extrapolation based on what I've read and understand. But they also the way these international deals work is you often have these arrangements set up ahead of time, and they're just executed in the period under which they can be accommodated. So you might know, okay, we're going to sign these 5 guys on January 16th. And they're going to account for, and from what I understand, the Cubs do have some of those already set up for the next period. Would they squash them all for Sasaki? Yeah, probably they
For
would,
sure. Yeah.
but that's just another little bit of a like you that's a big giant field where relationships and agreements that are handshake agreements do matter. And so that's at least another variable that's not exactly working in favor of the Cubs.
Yeah, well, I think the key word here is relationship, and I just really cannot imagine Sasaki not at least considering the Cubs based on Shota, based on Seiya, and the wild card that we haven't talked about, Yu Darvish, right? He
Oh
looks
yeah.
up to Yu Darvish, and Yu Darvish has nothing but amazing things to say about Chicago. If I remember correctly, I think Seiya reached out to you
Hmm.
when he was considering the Cubs.
But the
The
problem
only
there is that the Padres are also a
sure.
contender for Sasaki.
But my question, and I don't even know what Yu's contract is, but I mean he's getting up there in age, and Sasaki's going to be at whatever team for 6 years. Does he make a decision based on if Yu is only there for another year or two? Like I don't
Well,
know if that's
sure.
a smart decision.
No, that's a
Yeah,
good call. I mean, I guess I would just say that in terms of like the reputational advantage that Yu Darvish can lend credence to for the Cubs being a good place or a
yeah.
welcoming place, or Chicago being a welcoming place for Japanese players. But again, I think you're right, and I think that the Cubs have tried very hard to make themselves a desirable landing spot for Japanese stars because, like we've seen with Shota and Seiya, those guys are good. Like it is not this. It's not. It's not that it's not as big of a question. I think we've become more sophisticated in being able to identify which players and skill sets will translate a little bit better. It
Mhm.
just seems like these guys are hitting at a higher frequency than they
Right.
did 10, 15 years ago. So the Cubs prioritizing that path is smart, and hopefully, I mean, if it pays off, if it happens with Sasaki, every dollar they spend on Shota and Seiya will be even more worth it than it already is for both of those guys.
Right now, where this team is at, let's just assume going into opening day in Japan. Everything is the exact same as it currently is on the 26-man roster. The only difference is that you have Roki Sasaki. Where would you put this team projection win-wise right now as is, which I imagine would probably be in the same range that they've been the last 2 years, 83 to 85 wins? And where would you put this team if they had Sasaki on it?
I mean, I think in terms of projection, with even with Sasaki, you're probably like 86. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Which obviously isn't exactly where we want to be, but I do think, and I hate that you're making me say this so early in the offseason. Brad and I talk about this all the time, and we kind of laugh, right? If you I mean, if you look around the roster and bullpen notwithstanding, because that does need to be addressed in one way or another. I think it will. Um, it's not hard to see a good team. It's just not. It sucks that we have to say that because I don't want to. I don't think we should settle for a good team or a hard to see good
Mhm.
team.